kind of an American are you? It's time to show what you intend to do. If they trample on Old Glory, will you think that they are right? Or will you stand behind your land and fight with all your might?
Following the unsuccessful revolution of 1848 in Prussia, many Germans, who became known as the 48ers, made their way to the United States. Nearly 1 million Germans moved to the U.S. in the 1850s. These numbers continued to increase throughout the century, and by 1890, an estimated 2.8 million German-born immigrants were living in the U.S., with even larger numbers of first-generation immigrants. Iowa was soon among the main destinations for German settlers, along with Wisconsin and Illinois. Dubuque and Davenport, both along the Mississippi River, are particularly well known in Iowa for their large German populations. Germans were held in high esteem and fared well in American society. In 1915, the British passenger ship, the Lusitania, was attacked by a German U-boat, killing nearly 1,200, including 128 Americans. Public opinion on the war going on in Europe soon changed following this incident, and in 1917, the United States declared war on Germany. Many believed that the German-American communities still had strong roots in Prussia and were sympathetic to Kaiser Wilhelm and the German wartime effort.
American are you? That's a question you'll have to answer to. If the Star-Spangled Banner don't make you stand and cheer, then what are you doing over here?
The Wilson administration embarked on a domestic propaganda campaign in order to change the public opinion and rhetoric surrounding the war. The propaganda was pro-war, pro-America, and anti-German. Shown here, the Germans are depicted as rabid, vicious beasts capable of harming the Allied woman. He is holding a club on which the word culture is printed. The Germans often expressed a cultural arrogance, believing that German culture was more dignified and advanced than others, and the culture rat in the poster is how Germany will crush their opponents in the war. The U.S. government sold Liberty bonds in order to support the Allies. German Americans were practically forced to buy the bonds to prove their patriotism. This poster shows a passenger ship landing in New York City, filled with immigrants arriving to the U.S. to start a new life. The propaganda implies that the immigrants arriving experienced the thrill of liberty, and it is now their duty to buy Liberty bonds to ensure that liberty continues. Here, the Germans are depicted as Huns, and the only way to keep the vicious German soldiers from the United States is by purchasing Liberty bonds. With posters like these all over the country, German Americans wanted to distance themselves from any associations with their German heritage or culture. Governor Harding of Iowa issued the Babel Proclamation on May 14, 1918. According to the document, only English could be spoken in public or private schools, in public conversations, on trains, over the telephone, at all meetings, and in all religious services. Germans could no longer speak their language, and this anti-German sentiment in Iowa, a state filled with German Americans, almost completely eliminated the German culture present. Hundreds of German-language newspapers closed their doors, last names were Americanized, and even towns renamed. For example, Berlin, Iowa was renamed Lincoln. In Loudon, Iowa, the German Reverend John Reichardt told parishioners to be cautious when believing the patriotic and anti-German sentiment in the news. 74% of Loudon's population was first or second generation German Protestant immigrants, 81% in the rural parts of Cedar County. Reichardt's parish had a German language day school to maintain German cultural consciousness in the community. The Babel Proclamation hit this community hard. After word of his advice to be weary of patriotism got out, the Reverend was arrested and run out of town. The arrest and subsequent treatment of the pastor drew national attention, from Der Tägliche Demokrat out of Davenport to the New York Times. The Babel Proclamation was repealed 8 months later, shortly after the end of the war, but the damage had already been done on the German communities and culture in Iowa. German Americans assimilated and distanced themselves from Germany permanently.
What you intend to do? If they trample on Old Glory, will you think that they are right? Or will you stand behind your land and fight with all your might? What kind of an American are you? That's the question you'll have to answer to.